Hello, and thank you for listening. I'm Raina Cassidy, 27. 8 years ago, I refused to pour orange juice for my stepfather's son. He beat me, and my mother sent me away with $1. I thought leaving was freedom, but a month ago, an email came. My mother had a stroke, and he was asking for me. I returned, hoping for peace, and instead met the same fists, lies, and signatures that once erased me. That night, barefoot and bruised, I realized survival isn't silence. It's coming back with your voice unshaken. I grew up in Norman, Oklahoma, church on Sundays, prayer before dinner. The kind of neighborhood where the flags never came down and the windows all had the same curtains. But nothing looked like it felt from the inside. Our house always looked presentable. Clean porch, clipped lawn, mom's roses. Inside, it was cold in a way the heater couldn't fix. My mom, Lillian Cassidy, taught second grade. Everyone thought she was the sweet, patient kind. But behind closed doors, she didn't raise her voice. She used silence as punishment. Days would go by where she wouldn't even look at me. And when she did, it was like I was some chore she forgot to finish. I was a loud kid. Not volume loud, thoughts loud. I asked too many questions, read too much, challenged rules that didn't make sense. They called me difficult, rebellious, embarrassing. Grant, my older brother, didn't like that. He was everything I wasn't. Compliant, polished, always saying yes, sir, before our father even finished speaking. He once shoved me into a closet because I dared to correct him in front of his friends. When I was 9, our father died in a car accident. He was quiet, strict, and distant, but even that version of safe was better than what came after. Mom didn't mourn long. Within a year, she started dating Victor Manning. Big man, rough voice, ran a construction company, drove a truck like it was an extension of himself. He moved in quick, and with him came Riley, his son from a previous marriage. Riley was 9 when he arrived. Blonde curls, fake shy, knew how to cry on cue. And my mother, she melted. Called him my sweet boy within a week. Bought him his own cereal brand. A bunk bed even though he had no siblings in that house. Me, I got moved into the attic room to give Riley space to adjust. I adjusted to moldy walls and no insulation. Victor didn't like my tone, didn't like how I looked him in the eyes when he spoke. One night, when I refused to refill his beer, he gripped my wrist too tight and told me, "Your mouth's gonna get you in trouble, girl." From that point on, I wasn't a daughter. I was a worker. I washed Riley's sheets, folded his underwear, picked up the cereal he dumped on the floor. He once tossed his spoon at me and said, "Clean it, Raina. That's what you're good at." He was 9, and he already understood the hierarchy. When I was 15, I came home from school early and caught Victor screaming at my mother. He didn't hit her, but he stood so close. His spit landed on her cheek. She didn't flinch. She just kept doing the dishes. I told my teacher. I thought maybe someone would help. Instead, 2 days later, CPS showed up to do a wellness check. And Mom looked me in the eye and said, "Raina likes attention. She exaggerates." That night, she took my door off the hinges, told me privacy was for children who earn trust. Then she made me write a letter apologizing to Victor for embarrassing the family. I still remember the pen slipping in my hand from how hard I was shaking. By 17, I stopped speaking unless necessary. I stopped reporting anything. I folded into myself like old linen. Then something shifted. My Aunt May, Mom's older sister, visited for the holidays. She saw me flinch when Victor walked past, saw the way I stood while everyone else sat. After dinner, she cornered me in the hallway and whispered, "You want out, don't you?" I didn't cry. I nodded. That was enough. 2 weeks later, I was in Kansas, staying in Aunt May's guest room. She gave me a toothbrush, a set of clean pajamas, and space. She didn't ask for explanations, just offered tea and a bed with sheets that smelled like lavender, not sweat. For the first time, I heard silence that didn't feel dangerous. I ate toast without checking who else needed it first. I laughed during movies. I got to finish sentences, but freedom has an expiration date when it's borrowed. By the summer after high school, Mom called, said she was ready for me to come back, said she'd forgiven my little teenage rebellion. May warned me, but I still returned. I wanted to believe the door would open to something different, that maybe they missed me. I should have known better. They didn't miss me. They missed control. I hadn't spoken to my mother in 4 years when the email came. The subject line was just one word: urgent. The sender? Sophie, my younger sister. She never called me Raina. Her message started with, "Hey," like we were two acquaintances who'd once shared an Uber, not a bloodline. Then came the sentence that stopped my breath cold. "Mom had a stroke. Minor, but Victor's freaking out. He's asking where you are, I think. Maybe you should come home." I read that email 6 times. Then I closed my laptop and sat in silence until the sun moved across the hardwood floor and disappeared behind the bookshelf. For years, I'd told myself I was done. Done trying. Done needing. But something about that line, "He's asking where you are," felt like bait, and I bit. I packed slowly, a soft cardigan, a small tin of ginger tea, and a crocheted angel ornament I'd made when I was 10. I tucked it in the side pocket of my duffel. I bought a gift for Mom, a lavender-scented diffuser with a handwritten tag, "For peace finally." I left Austin on a Tuesday, boarded the Greyhound at 9:45 a.m., and stared out the window for 4 hours, wondering if I'd made the worst mistake of my adult life. The house looked the same. Same red shutters, same porch swing that never creaked unless I sat on it. But the tension was different, tighter, like the walls had learned how to hold their breath. Sophie opened the door. She looked thinner than I remembered. Her smile was brief, strained. She stepped aside and said, "Mom's resting. Victor's in the garage. Riley, he's around." The word hung in the air like smoke. Riley. He wasn't 9 anymore. He was 19. Bulkier, louder, and still full of the same smug entitlement. I walked into the kitchen. Everything was clean, curated, it always was. But there were cracks now, literally. One tile was chipped near the fridge, and no one had bothered to fix it. That chip felt like a message. "I can cook," I said out loud, surprising even myself. "Tonight, I'll make dinner." Sophie blinked. "Are you sure?" "I want to." That evening, I peeled potatoes in silence, set the table, wiped down the counters twice. I even folded the napkins the way Mom liked. Triangles, not squares. I was trying. I needed her to see that. Dinner was quiet at first. Riley showed up late, wearing basketball shorts and no shirt. He dropped into the chair across from me and muttered, "Juice." I glanced at the pitcher. He didn't say please. He never did. "I'm eating too," I said evenly, not looking up. He blinked. I said juice. Victor's fork hit his plate with a sharp clink. "She heard you." I reached for the pitcher, poured slowly. The smell of roast chicken lingered between us like a memory no one wanted to claim. Riley took one sip and said, "Needs ice." I stood, walked to the freezer, dropped 2 cubes in his glass, and set it back down. Then it happened. He dropped his fork on the floor, intentionally. "Oops," he said, with that same smirk he wore 10 years ago. I stared at him. I didn't move. Victor looked up. "Pick it up." "No," I said, not loud, just firm. "He's grown. He can pick up his own damn fork." The room fell quiet. Even the air stilled. Victor stood up, slow, like he was pulling his rage up from the soles of his boots. "What did you just say to me?" Mom said nothing. Didn't even flinch. "She's tired," Sophie offered weakly. Victor stepped around the table. "Say it again." I didn't. My silence wasn't fear. It was fury. His belt was off before I saw his hand move. The first hit landed across my back, the second across my upper arm. I gasped. My chair tipped. "Victor, stop!" Sophie cried. But Mom walked over, gripped my chin with one hand. Her nails cut into my skin. "You want to disrespect this home?" she said through clenched teeth. "Then get out." Blood was in my mouth. I wiped it with the back of my hand. "I just wanted to eat dinner," I whispered. Victor pointed to the door. "Go." I stumbled toward the hallway, my legs shaking. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't grab shoes. Just my hoodie and wallet. Empty except for one wrinkled dollar. Outside, the night air hit me like a slap. The porch light flickered once and died. They didn't say goodbye. They just locked the door. I stood on the front lawn barefoot, my shoulders screaming, my throat raw. I looked back at that house, at the place that taught me I was disposable. Then I turned away. Still here, not gone, not erased, still here. I stayed with Jada for 8 days. She didn't ask questions, just handed me an extra key and showed me the linen closet. I slept on her pull-out couch with my right arm still throbbing from Victor's belt, the bone underneath bruised deep. We'd been friends in high school before I disappeared from town. She worked nights now at a print shop. During the day, I stayed quiet, tried to stay small. I iced my shoulder with a bag of frozen peas and scrolled job boards I knew I wouldn't qualify for, with no ID, no address, no stability. On the 9th morning, I opened my email to see a message from the county clerk. I'd applied to reissue my birth certificate and license. But the email wasn't a confirmation, it was a denial. Request flagged. Legal guardian documentation on file. Please call to resolve. I wasn't supposed to have a legal guardian. I was 27. I called. The clerk transferred me 3 times before someone finally said, "Your file's locked due to a protective filing from a previous residence." I sat still, barely breathing. Protective? Yes. A record was submitted identifying you as a domestic threat. Minor related. I'm not allowed to read the entire report, but it cites incident risk involving a juvenile male. Riley. I hung up. My hands were numb. My face burned. Jada walked in with coffee and saw me holding the phone like it had just bitten me. What? I think they filed something against me. Years ago, when I left, she blinked. Filed what? Like a report. That I was dangerous, that I threatened Riley. Jada sat next to me. Do you want to find out what it says? I nodded. She helped me submit a request for the report under my own name. It took 2 days. When it came, it was 6 pages long. PDF, stamped, official. I opened it alone. Page 1. Subject identified as Raina Cassidy. Age at time, 24. Line 3. Reported by Victor Manning, stepfather. Supported by Lillian Cassidy, mother. My throat tightened. Page 2. Subject displayed erratic emotional behavior. Witnesses describe pattern of verbal escalation. Specific incident noted where subject allegedly retrieved a kitchen knife during argument with minor male in household, RM, age 15 at time. I stopped reading. They said I pulled a knife. They said I escalated. There was no knife. There was Riley barking orders at me like I was a maid, and me saying no. That was the escalation. I kept scrolling. Page 4. Recommended action. Label subject as high risk to household minors. Strong recommendation that subject not be permitted re-entry without supervision. The final signature, Lillian Cassidy. Date, 2 days after I was kicked out. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just stared. They didn't just throw me out. They buried me in paper. They erased me with ink. My entire identity, reduced to an incident I didn't cause. A lie they all agreed to. A signature from the woman who birthed me, validating that lie. I opened my wallet. The same wrinkled dollar still sat in there, like a joke. Like proof. They called me unstable, but they stole my name. They painted me dangerous, but I was the only one who didn't hurt anyone. Still here. Not gone. Not erased. Still here. Jada knocked on the door later that night. She saw the open laptop, the report still glowing on the screen. She didn't say anything. Just slid a mug toward me, hot tea, no sugar, just heat. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until 4 a.m., then opened a new document. No title, no formatting. Just the first sentence that came to me. This is how you erase a daughter. You call her angry, then punish her for speaking. You call her dangerous, then provoke her until she breaks. You call her gone, and hope she never comes back to tell the truth. I didn't stop typing for an hour, and I knew then I wasn't going to fix this. I wasn't going to win them back. I was going to expose it. I didn't scream, I didn't confront, I didn't even send a text. What I did was buy a notebook, a cheap one, spiral bound, lined paper. I wrote on the first page with a blue pen. They erased me with signatures. I'll write it back with sound. At first, I just wrote memories, moments, fragments that kept looping in my head when I tried to sleep. Riley throwing a spoon at me when he was 10. My mom turning up the TV when Victor yelled. Grant calling me a mouth with legs. Little things I was told to forget. But forgetting is a privilege you don't get when your bruises still ache in the rain. One night, Jada came home from work and found me sitting in the dark, recording into my phone. She leaned against the doorframe and asked, "Are you starting something?" I didn't look up. "Maybe. What's it called?" I stared at the screen for a long time before saying, "The Quiet Daughter." She nodded once. "Sounds like something people will listen to." And they did. I recorded the first episode in one take. No music, no intro. Just my voice, low and even. This is what it feels like to be erased while everyone still sees you in the hallway. This is what it feels like to serve dinner to people who pretend they didn't hurt you yesterday. This is the sound of a daughter they tried to unwrite. I didn't name names, not yet. I changed locations, tweaked details. But the stories were real. Every scratch, every slammed door, every meal where I was told to serve before I could sit. I uploaded it anonymously, on Reddit. I dropped it into a thread called Family Secrets. I expected maybe a dozen listens. I got 5,000 in 2 days. The comments wrecked me, not because they were mean, but because they were too familiar. This was my house too. I'm the quiet daughter in another state. Thank you, just thank you. By the end of the week, I had a name trending under trauma TikTok. Nobody knew my face, nobody saw my bruises, but they heard my voice. Still here, not gone, not erased, still here. Then came the DM. It was from a woman named Clara Jensen, profile, gallery owner, Austin, Texas. She wrote, "I recognize the sound of survival. Come visit if you're local. I have a project you might want to be part of. No pressure, just curiosity." I stared at that message for an hour before replying, "I'm local, and I'm done being quiet." Clara Jensen's gallery sat on the east side of Austin, wedged between a shuttered bookstore and a vape shop with a flickering neon open sign that never turned off. From the outside, it didn't look like much, just a black awning, a single glass door, and a name stenciled in white letters, Jensen Works. No tagline, no buzzwords, just that. I showed up early, wore a hoodie, no makeup. I didn't want to be recognized, even if no one knew me. Clara opened the door before I could knock. She was older than I expected. Maybe mid-60s, short gray hair, combat boots, long linen shirt smudged with paint at the cuffs. Her eyes didn't blink much. She didn't smile either. "You're her," she said. I nodded. She stepped aside. "Come in." The space was quiet, sparse, white walls, cement floor. One spotlight above a pedestal holding a sculpture that looked like a woman mid-scream. Mouth open, but no sound. I stopped in front of it. "You made this?" I asked. Clara leaned against the doorway. "No, a girl who disappeared 2 years ago. She dropped it off and never came back." I stared at it. Something about the way the mouth was carved made my stomach twist. "You said you had a project?" I asked, still facing the statue. "I don't work with themes," she said. "I work with voices, the ones no one wants to hear. Your podcast, it's not polished, not perfect, but it's honest. It reminds people of things they swore they buried." I turned to face her. She stepped forward. "I want you to build something, not for me, for you. But I'll give you the space, the tools, the wall." I laughed once. "I'm not a sculptor," she shrugged. "Doesn't matter. Clay doesn't care if your hands are trained. It remembers touch, not technique." I hesitated. Clara walked to the back and came back with a small slab of clay wrapped in damp muslin. She placed it on a table between us. The smell of earth and dust hit me like a wave. It smelled like something old, something real. "You ever worked with this?" she asked. I shook my head. She tore the wrapping open and pressed her thumb into the center of the clay. "It forgives," she said quietly. "You just have to be honest." That night, I sat in the back room of the gallery alone. A single lamp glowed above the table. The clay was cold at first, then warm, then something else entirely. I didn't try to shape anything beautiful. I pressed, pulled, scraped. Some of it collapsed, some held. I didn't want to make art. I wanted to make evidence. The next morning, Clara came back and saw what I'd made. It was rough, asymmetrical. But in the center of the misshapen bowl, I had carved 2 words. "Still here." Clara stared at it for a long time. Then she looked up. "This isn't just a story," she said. "This is testimony. People need to see it." "What are you thinking?" I asked. "A show," she replied. "Yours, but not just sculpture, audio, photographs, texture. You tell the story the way you want it told. People will come, they'll listen, and they'll see." I didn't say yes. Not right away. But something inside me, something I thought was long dead, shifted. Not rage, not revenge, resolve. I wasn't going to fix the past. I was going to make it undeniable. I started with the belt, not the actual belt. Victor kept that damn thing like a trophy. Probably still looped on the same hook near the garage. But the sound. I still had the raw audio file from my old Zoom recorder, a gift from an ex-client who owed me money but had spare gear. I'd hit record the night of Mom's birthday, before everything. Call it habit. Or maybe instinct. I didn't know it would catch the snap of leather through air, the hit, my gasp, Riley's snort, Sophie's silence, my mother's voice, cold and flat. She asked for it. That was the first track. Next was the email. I hadn't touched my old Yahoo inbox in years, but there it was, an auto-forward from Victor, labeled Family Behavior Risk. The body was vague, but the attachment wasn't. A scanned letter with my name in bold. Statements like, "She escalated into threats with a knife, and we no longer feel safe with Raina present." It was signed Lillian C. Manning in her precise schoolteacher script. No hesitation, no footnote. Just a clean cut. I printed it, blew it up. It would be hung large, centered, harsh, unforgiving. Then came the card statements. Clara helped me dig. We used an old laptop I kept for editing jobs. Scrolled through banking apps and credit logs until it showed up. Riley's name linked to charges at GameStop, Uber Eats, even a hotel stay. All charged to Mom's card. Time-stamped to the months I'd been blamed for stealing. I printed those too. Circled the transactions in red. "I want this to feel like a courtroom," I told Clara. "But one where the jury never gets to leave." Clara smirked. "Good, because most galleries are prisons for the truth." We mapped it all out on the wall with painter's tape and sticky notes. Timeline on the left, audio booths on the right, one central installation in the middle of the space. That's where the belt sound would loop. Soft at first, then louder until it was unavoidable. No visuals, just sound. Just the echo of a crime called discipline. Clara said it was risky. I said it was overdue. The final touch? The photo. I had only one left from my childhood. Creased, faded, but sharp enough to see the scratch above my eyebrow. I'd fallen off my bike trying to escape one of Riley's tantrums. He'd pushed me, told Mom I tripped. She believed him. I scanned it, enlarged it, and added a caption underneath. She tripped. He lied. She bled. They clapped. By the end of the week, the gallery looked like a crime scene curated with surgical care. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I recorded a new episode for The Quiet Daughter, my voice low, deliberate. They said I was unstable, but I was the only one standing when they all played dead. I was the only one who remembered. And now I'm going to make sure they remember too. I scheduled the episode to drop the same day as the opening night. No hashtags, no ads, just the truth, fed directly into people's ears. The night before the exhibit, I walked through the space alone. No lights, no sound. Just the hum of the AC and the faint smell of clay drying on the pedestal in the center. My hands brushed over the words carved into the sculpture. Still here. I whispered it aloud. Once, just once. Then I turned out the lights. The night of the exhibit, the gallery buzzed. From the sidewalk, I could already hear the hush inside, a strange kind of silence, like the kind you hold before a storm hits. Clara waited for me by the entrance, her hand lightly squeezing my elbow. "You don't have to say a word if you don't want to," she whispered. I looked at the crowd through the glass. I wasn't nervous. I was done being nervous. Inside, the lights were dim, just enough to highlight the walls. One side of the room was lined with framed transcripts from my podcast. Each page backlit, each word preserved like evidence. A looped audio track played softly in the background, the sound of a girl breathing through pain. Not crying, just breathing. We'd arranged the space carefully. First room, cold, Clinical, titled Diagnosis. The false psychiatric reports Victor wrote. My mother's signature. Audio spliced from episode 3, me reading those files out loud, my voice shaking, then steady, then cold. A woman at the back covered her mouth. The second room hit harder. It was called Erasure. Childhood photos, except I'd blacked myself out of them. Just outlines where I used to be. One wall held nothing but a large canvas painted white. In the middle, a smear of crimson. Below it, this was my seat at the table. Then came the final room, dark and echoing. A small projector played footage looped in silence. Victor's hand raised. Riley's smirk. My own body recoiling. No words, no music. Just the sound of a belt slicing air, again and again, against nothing. A spotlight lit the centerpiece. A sculpture molded from red clay. A young girl curled in a fetal position, back covered in etch marks. Not realistic, but symbolic. Her wings, broken, chipped, uneven. But still there, still attached. And finally, the audio room. I stepped onto the small stage. Clara gave me a nod. No script. Just breath. I looked out. I saw strangers, reporters, artists, survivors. And 2 rows behind them, Sophie. I was told not to talk about this, I began. They said I was too dramatic, that I made things up, that I was the problem. I paused. Let the silence ache. But I wasn't the problem. I was the evidence. I read them a paragraph from my journal. From the night Victor beat me. I keep touching my shoulder, like maybe the pain will write something. Like maybe the bruise will spell out the truth. But bruises fade, and silence doesn't. Then I raised my eyes and let them see me. They beat me for not pouring orange juice, but really they beat me because I refused to shrink. The room didn't erupt. It held still, heavy, honest. And then, applause. Not explosive, not wild, just rising and certain, like thunder with rhythm. Afterward, a woman approached me in tears. She said, I didn't know I needed this until tonight. Another left a note. I'm not erased. I'm just quiet. Thank you for speaking loud. That night, I walked home alone. No mic, no makeup, no hoodie this time. Just me, still here, not gone, not erased, still here. 3 days after the gallery show, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, Formal request for interview, Oklahoma Police Department. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at the screen and felt everything around me go silent, like the moment before an earthquake hits. Victor was being investigated. Someone, likely one of the visitors from the show, had forwarded the clips to a domestic violence task force. Turns out, one of the volunteers helping at the gallery was married to an officer. They didn't even need my testimony, my voice in those podcast clips, my screams under the lash of his belt, were enough to open a case. When I called the police line, they asked if I wanted to file a formal statement. I told them everything I needed to say is already recorded. And I meant it. I didn't want revenge. I wanted record. I wanted history to reflect what really happened in that house. Victor tried to spin it, of course, said the audio was edited, said I was mentally unstable, that I had a vendetta. But his mistake was underestimating how much people believe the sound of truth when it's raw, when it's ugly, when it shakes. The investigator said one sentence I'll never forget. You didn't scream like someone lying. Then the school board got involved. Lillian, my mother, was still employed at Norman Elementary. But when local parents learned she'd stood silently while her husband beat her daughter in front of the entire family, they organized a petition, over 2,000 signatures. Board meetings turned chaotic. Local news ran the clip on loop with the headline, Teacher ignored domestic violence in her own home. I didn't watch the news, but Jada kept texting updates. They're cornered, she said, and for the first time, no one's protecting them. Victor's construction license was suspended pending investigation. He showed up on a live stream yelling at reporters. That girl twisted everything, he barked. She was always troubled. The crowd didn't buy it. People yelled back, then why'd you beat her on video? Why'd you lie to Child Protective Services? The best part? One of his former clients reached out to me, an older woman whose house he renovated. She said, he mocked his own stepdaughter while doing drywall in my home. I thought it was just tasteless talk. I didn't know it was real. She filed a character complaint. That made 3 separate reports against him. I didn't lift a finger. I didn't respond. I didn't even whisper his name. Still here, not gone, not erased, still here. He tried to erase me and instead erased himself. Grant was next. He had built a pristine image, senior VP of client relations at a Dallas tech firm. The type who wore cufflinks and corrected waiters, who smiled for Christmas photos, but never once looked you in the eye when apologizing. I wasn't surprised when I got the anonymous message. Hey Raina, you don't know me, but I interned at Apex. Your brother? He's in trouble. Attached was a screenshot of an internal complaint. Someone had dug up the podcast. A Reddit thread was circulating with the title, The Quiet Daughter. That's Grant Cassidy's sister, right? Turns out, when your brand is built on diversity and empathy, it doesn't go well when your sister's voice is trending under a uproar you let them hit her. I didn't plan it, but I didn't stop it either. A former coworker of Grant's DM'd me. He shut down every time someone brought up domestic violence trainings. Told HR they were a waste of time. No one knew why. Now we do. The company started reviewing all internal conflict reports tied to him. 3 women came forward. Each said he dismissed their harassment concerns. One said he told her, "Don't be dramatic like my sister used to be." They terminated his contract quietly. No press. No public announcement, just gone from the website. A LinkedIn update from senior VP to currently exploring opportunities. Riley, though, that was public. Someone from his college, some theater kid from the same freshman dorm, posted a clip. Not from the gallery, but from an old Snapchat memory. Riley laughing, pointing his phone at a young Rena curled up on the carpet. She's being dramatic again, his voice sneered. Dad's just reminding her who's in charge. You could hear the belt in the background. Sharp, wet, real. The video went viral. Hundreds of comments. Who records that and laughs? How is this kid not expelled? That's not a family, that's a cult. His friends unfollowed, professors distanced. The college issued a vague statement about reviewing past student conduct concerns. He dropped out a week later. Someone tagged me in a post that showed him loading a beat-up car. I didn't share it, but I saw it. And I remembered every glass of water I fetched while he played Xbox. Every time he snapped his fingers like I was a maid. Every time he told Mom I looked at him weird and got me grounded. No apology came. Not from Grant. Not from Riley. But I didn't need one. They weren't sorry, they were just exposed. And there's a difference. I didn't hear from Mom. Not a word. Not a text. Not a missed call. Just silence that somehow still sounded like her voice saying, "Why do you always ruin everything?" But I did hear about her. One of Jada's cousins worked at the school where Mom used to teach. Crestview Elementary, north side of Norman. Quiet campus. PTA moms with yoga pants and water bottles that said blessed. The kind of place where whispers move faster than memos. Apparently, a parent recognized her from the gallery coverage. Then another recognized her name from the podcast's episode credits. The whispers turned to emails. The emails turned to meetings. And then the meetings turned into questions. One board member asked, "Did you really sign off on a report calling your daughter mentally unstable?" She denied it at first, said she had no memory of such a thing, but the file had her signature, her handwriting, her school district email, and my birth certificate. Redacted, photocopied, missing page 2. The one with my legal guardianship status. She was placed on administrative leave pending review. They called it procedural. I called it overdue. That same week, Sophie sent me a message. "Mom's been crying nonstop. She says her life is falling apart." I didn't answer. Let me be clear, I didn't want her fired. I didn't want her humiliated. I didn't want her broken. I just wanted her to look at the version of herself she told the world didn't exist. The woman who stood still while her husband raised a belt. The mother who watched her daughter bleed and told herself it was discipline. The teacher who taught other children to speak up, but punished her own when she did. There were no lawsuits, no arrests, no news vans on the lawn. Just the slow unraveling of a lie too fragile to hold its weight. And through it all I said nothing. No follow-up podcast. No interviews. No anonymous comments on viral threads. I just watched. Watched the fire I never lit slowly catch the curtains they hung over the truth. And I stayed quiet. Because now the silence belonged to them. The letter arrived on a Wednesday. No return address. Just my name. Crookedly written in cursive I hadn't seen in years. Slanted, uneven, like she wrote it with a shaking hand, or maybe one that finally realized it wasn't holding the pen right. I didn't open it right away. I left it on the counter for 2 days. Watched it sit there next to my cracked coffee mug and dried paintbrushes. Like it was daring me to remember how many times I begged for words that never came. When I did open it, it was 2 pages long. The ink smudged near the bottom. Probably tears, probably hers. She wrote, "I should have protected you. I should have known better. I don't expect forgiveness, but if there's a version of this life where we speak again, I'd take it. Even if it's just once. Even if it's not kind. Just to hear your voice again." She didn't sign it, Mom. She just signed it Lillian. And weirdly, that felt more honest. 2 weeks later, Sophie asked if we could meet. We picked a diner halfway between Austin and Norman. Cheap fries, endless coffee, vinyl booths that squeaked when you leaned back too far. She looked thinner, nervous. She held her phone in both hands like it was a shield. She didn't start with excuses, or small talk, or even her usual, "How are you?" she said. "I should have stood up when you did. I didn't. I froze. I watched them hurt you, and I pretended I didn't see it. I told myself you were dramatic because that's what Mom always said. But you weren't. You were just alone. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But instead, I nodded once and said, 'Yeah, I was.' And she whispered, 'I don't want to keep pretending.' So we didn't. She came to one of my community events in Austin, a storytelling night I hosted at Clara's Gallery. Sat in the second row. Listened to a girl read a piece about surviving her stepfather's control. Clapped until her hands were red. Afterwards, she hugged the girl like she was hugging someone she failed to be. A few weeks later, I got an email from the board of an elementary school in Waco. They'd heard my podcast. One of their counselors recommended it during a training session. They asked if I'd be open to helping them build a curriculum about recognizing emotional abuse in families. I didn't say yes right away, because helping kids meant returning to the kind of buildings where people wore lanyards and cardigans, and used words like intervention, while quietly avoiding the real ones, like trauma or enabling. But then I thought about the second graders whose parents yell more than they talk, the fifth graders who flinch when someone raises their voice, the eighth graders who already know how to hide bruises under sleeves. I said yes, but on one condition. I won't sugarcoat it. I won't call it conflict. I won't pretend silence is neutral. I'll tell them what silence really is. The principal nodded. That's exactly why we want you. Still here, not gone, not erased, still here. I thought of all the times I'd whispered that into my own pillow, like a mantra, like a lifeline. And now, it was written on a whiteboard in a third-grade classroom in Texas, in my handwriting. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was still trying to be believed. I felt like I was building something real. Out of all the pieces they tried to bury, fire and ashes. But now, the fire was mine. And this time, it warmed. It didn't burn. Not me, not anymore. I live in a studio apartment now, East Austin. One window, brick walls that don't insulate for shit. But it's mine. On the wall above my desk, there's a photo of me at 10, arms crossed, chin up, eyes defiant. Under it, I wrote in Sharpie, "I survived being unbelieved." Every Tuesday night, I run a small storytelling group at Clara's Gallery. No fancy flyers. Just a hand-painted sign that says, "Your voice belongs." People come, people cry. Some of them speak for the first time in years. Some just listen. Sometimes that's all you can do when your voice has been on mute too long. You let others go first, until your own throat remembers it has something to say. The podcast? It took on a life of its own. The Quiet Daughter cracked Spotify's top 10 for true personal stories 3 months ago. Then NPR picked up a segment. Then a documentary crew called. I said no to the documentary. This story didn't need another lens. It just needed volume and clarity and me. I started getting invited to speak. First it was small nonprofits, then state conferences, then classrooms. I went back to Kansas once. where Aunt May hugged me so tight I almost remembered what safety felt like. And in Topeka, I looked out at a crowd of 200 middle school teachers and said, "We can't keep telling kids to use their words if we silence them when the words make us uncomfortable." That line got quoted a lot, shared on slideshows, printed in newsletters, but I didn't write it for applause. I wrote it for the 16-year-old version of me who stared at a wall all night because she couldn't figure out if what happened was her fault or just her family. I never went back to Norman, not to the house, not to the church, not even to the Dairy Queen where Mom used to take Riley after his soccer games and leave me waiting in the car. But sometimes, when I pass certain places, a cracked sidewalk, a metal swing creaking alone in the dark, I think of her, of all of them, and I don't feel anger. I feel something heavier, something quieter, something like truth, left unspoken for too long, still here, not gone, not erased, still here. Maybe that's what survival really means. Not that you win, not that you're untouched, just that you keep showing up in rooms they tried to lock you out of. And you speak, even if your voice shakes, even if no one claps, even if your mother never apologizes again, you speak. And for once, you believe yourself. If you've listened this far and your heart's beating a little faster than usual, maybe you've been where I've been. Maybe your scars aren't visible, but they still burn when someone says, "It wasn't that bad." Maybe your silence was mistaken for peace, or obedience, or guilt. Let me say this. You are not broken for surviving. You are not dramatic for remembering. You are not weak for speaking. I'm not asking you to post your pain, or name your abuser, or record a podcast. I'm just asking you to stop erasing yourself to make others comfortable. I left with $1, a cracked voice, and skin that flinched at every loud sound. Now I have a mic, I have my story, and I have you. Thank you for listening, for holding space, for making room for daughters like me who were told they didn't belong. They didn't know what I'd become after I closed that door, but now you do. Still here, not gone, not erased, still here.